baggage handling, odds and end jobs at customs. I used to wheelchair people to their gate and so forth. So I've always had a passion for transportation. And I like international travel, particularly going to places like Germany or Denmark, Sweden. Um, I feel like I should be there now, maybe northern Norway, somewhere where it's colder. I'd love to be there right now. But yeah, so the TransBorder program was established by BTS in the late, I want to say in the 90s, but the data goes back to the early 80s. And it's the only source for tracking freight by value and weight with Canada and Mexico by surface modes. So you guys may know the uh, Census Bureau has uh, an international trade data program where they have like a something called USA Trade Online that compiles data for U.S. trade with countries all around the world, and I organize it by imports and exports. But basically, you can search by port level data and like drill down to the commodities. You can select the port you want to choose, value or weight, um, commodity, uh, country, and time. Um, the measure part though only has air and vessel, obviously, for most countries, and they don't break it down by surface modes like truck, rail, or pipeline for Canada and Mexico, which is what we need. And so what we did was contract with them to provide this data to us. Uh, we pay them for it. It's like uh, every 3 years we have a IAA way we negotiate a price where they provide this data every month. It's on a 2 month lag, and that's because Census releases their data and like with a 2 month lag. And this is their foreign trade data release schedule. You can see this is, I just look on this calendar, see when they're going to release the data. They send it to us. And then I make it available to the public on our website in raw format, like unprocessed. And then I also upload it to Tableau, where we make data visualizations using this data. And so that's the main thing that I want to demo to you guys today is the data visualizations that we've created using the raw data from Census. This is the dashboard itself, but I'm going to start off with the TransBorder homepage. So if you go to www.bts.gov, over statistical products and data, there's a link to it here. It's TransBorder freight data. And this goes to a Socrata page where we keep the data and where we've organized it by boxes, and I'll get to those. But basically, yeah, the TransBorder program measures freight flows with Canada and Mexico by mode of transportation, dollar value, weight, and commodity. And the dashboard looks like this. And we have the side menu, where you can toggle between the filters to make your like date selections, for example. And it's weird how this was designed. This was actually made by a contractor that Steve Beningo oversaw, my predecessor. He was the previous lead. I don't know if you guys know him, remember him, but he was the previous lead on this project. He retired a couple of years ago, and then I took over. But if you want like 2024 data, it's easy. You just select like January 2024 as a start date and December as the end date. And then so this will give you 2024 data. But like if you want, say, the latest available month, what you have to do is select May as the start date and the end date. And that will compare May 2024, I'm sorry, May 2025 to May 2024. Then you can select between like value. In millions is actually billions because we're talking about like in 2024, the U.S. did $1.6 trillion. That's a big number. $1.6 trillion of freight with Canada and Mexico. And it's broken down by mode of transportation. And this line indicates where the number was previous year. So in 2023, it was 996 billion by truck. As you can see, truck is the predominant mode of transportation with Canada and Mexico. It handles around 65% of the freight. You can, like, if you want to do just like Canada, you can select a Canada triangle and see what U.S. freight is with Canada only. And you can see that it's still around 55, 56% with Canada. It's usually a little bit larger with Mexico, 72% of freight, U.S. freight with Mexico's by truck. And then you can see, like, once you make your country selection, like mode selection, let's say I select the truck mode, it automatically presents the data within that truck mode, like the top ports and the top commodities for truck. So we can see that Laredo, Texas is the top port here, handling $281 billion of freight with the U.S. Yasalta, Otay Mesa, Hidalgo, and so forth. And then, like, if you select Laredo, it'll tell you the top commodities that are being transported by truck through the port of Laredo. And then you can also do this and then select if you want imports or exports. So it's a pretty cool tool. You can drill down into the commodities a little bit more as well. And then we also have a tab where you can view the Canadian provinces that are doing freight with the U.S. and make those selections. You can, like, drill down into Ontario, for example, and see what type of commodities are coming in through truck with. And these are really precise numbers. I've periodically, what I do is I download, so you can download this data as well. You can just do like this little down arrow button, and you can get an image of this like view right here, or you can like download it, the same image into a PowerPoint, or you can like do cross tab and get it in Excel or CSV. And yeah, so it's a pretty cool tool. The raw data is located on this website. I have a link to it from here where it says like users can download the raw data, and I'll just go to here. The files are kind of large, but so we zip them, and then some people don't use these dashboards. The main customers for this data are like consulting firms or metropolitan planning organizations, university researchers, PhD students. Um, Sometimes we'll get like, states, border states, they're interested in this data. And what they'll do is they'll just tap into the raw data. They don't care about our dashboards. Um, they might find it useful, but they're mainly looking for the raw data to put in their reports or whatever. So you can just download it here and then like work with it yourself. But yeah, that's pretty much the dashboard. And then you have some like in-house charts and analysis that update monthly with the dashboards as well. So you can like see what the top commodities are by mode of transportation and whether it's an import or an export. And then just kind of like the same dashboards. You can see percent change from the previous year. Then recently we added a new box here, which is forecast. It uses a Sarima model to try to predict what, because this data is 2 months behind, it tries to predict what, the current like number would be, say for like August 2025, or, looking out, let's say like 2 months from when this data is published. So I don't know, it uses like a mathematical formula in the background to calculate based on like the trends and averages and medians and that sort of thing. And then it just gives you this guideline of what it thinks the prediction, the future data should be. And so, yeah, that's an overview of the TransBorder data program. Now, something I wanted to go over with as a side note, because I think it's pretty cool, is I use this AI. I don't know if you guys know about this, but it's called Replit. You may have heard of it. It's like an AI agent where you can upload raw data into it. I've been just playing around with it, but I try to upload the raw data I was just referencing into Replit, where you can just like attach a file and then you can type, what you want it to do, and then it will create a dashboard or visualization. I mean, if you want, I mean, it can also do like apps or whatever, but like I did one for our border crossing data program, but it's a little slow to load, but like it'll create a dashboard based on your instructions with filters for like mode of transportation, which country, import or export, port, date selection, and it'll make it. I'm not sure how good or useful this is, but I mean, it's just kind of, it's an example of what you can do, I think, going into the future with, what the capabilities of AI could be, like, using raw transportation statistics and AI chatbots to kind of like create your own apps. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I just wanted to share that as a side note with everyone.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know if I've heard of that. Anybody else has. So you might have taught us something here today.
It's called Replit. Yeah. And it's free. I shouldn't have, it's not always free. It's like initially free. You can, but once you use a certain number of credits, it wants you to subscribe. It's like $25 a month or something. But you can make, mobile apps, desktop apps, dashboards like I just showed. I also, made like another app for a program called the. If you're familiar with that, it's like a little this as well. It kind of mimicked these charts and graphs in there, but we normally hand this out as like the printed version at in TRB. Um, but yeah, so it's pretty cool what you can do. This is I didn't realize I wasn't sharing my screen, but yeah, you can download the PDF of this, but you can also view the online version where um, it's like the same chapters as the printed or PDF version, but in Socrata. And what I did was I uploaded the PDF, the whole thing to Replit, and it recreated what you just saw in Socrata. So it was pretty shocking. I was like, wow, it did it in like 5 minutes. And, we've paid like contractors like tens of thousands of dollars to like kind of help us out with some of those Tableau dashboards that you saw earlier, the main TransBorder Tableau dashboard. And Replit did it for free in like 15 minutes. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, that's all I have. Do you have any questions or?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I guess everyone just going all the way back to the beginning. It sounds as though the Census Bureau had this border crossing data, but they don't publish it as part of that USA
Yes.
Trade database.
So Census has this data. They get it from CBP actually, right? So CBP, I should backtrack more. So the shippers and carriers submit their customs forms to CBP in either pre-clearance or when they get to border crossing. And it's like a waybill or manifest document or form, and it's submitted electronically. It has all the information about the conveyance in the container, like auto parts, or is it like corn or potash or what have you. And then CBP takes that data at the port or land border crossing, what we call them. CBP has an organizational structure where they have like customs districts. Like, for example, there's the Swanson sector, and then within that, there's like smaller border crossings, and then there's within those customs districts, there's individual bridges like the Ambassador Bridge in Detroit, the Windsor Tunnel, Blue Water Bridge, and then like in New York, you have like the Rainbow Bridge, Lewiston Queenston Bridge, Peace Bridge, but we don't get data by those like bridges, or like in Laredo, there's a bunch of like bridges that cross from Mexico to Texas, and also El Paso. But we get data, and also they submit the data to CBP by those like customs districts areas, those larger, and then so their database is called ACE, where they house all this data. ACE ITDS is what it's called. I'm not sure what it stands for. Then it gets like piped to the Census Bureau, where they make it available to the public, USA Trade Online. And I've actually done, I do periodic audits where I compare the TransBorder raw data that we get from them, and like these numbers, for example, that are in our main dashboard, to what they have in here, and it's matches precisely, like exactly down to the penny, and like dollar value. But yeah, I mean, essentially, it's kind of the same. It's not kind of, it's exactly, it's exactly, it's kind of the same tool because you're researching U.S. international freight flows by, say, commodity. And like, for example, if I select live animals here, you can drill down into one, two, three, four, five, 6 digit commodity code. And, uh, you can like do auto parts, you can do, animal, whatever, articles of clothing, aircraft, spacecraft. And like this goes down aircraft parts and like helicopters, aircraft launch gear. So we don't have the one thing this has that TransBorder doesn't have is the ability to drill down to this level of commodity. We go down to the 2 digits, and that's based on our agreement with the Census Bureau. It might be because they want to, I don't know, try to protect their data, but yeah, you can drill down a little bit further here and do like country, and it actually has every country in the world in here. So you can go like from Afghanistan down to like island St. Lucia, and then port and measure. But the only thing that like distinguishes, the main thing that distinguishes this tool with ours is that we have the ability to break it down further to like not only vessel but adding truck, rail, and pipeline to your research using the TransBorder data. So what we do, the value added thing about TransBorder is that we take the raw data from census and we kind of sort it out and we strip out the truck, rail, and pipeline modes. Which pipeline is a huge deal too because there's like billions of dollars of like oil, gas, and mineral fuels flowing from Canada to the. They have shale oil there, tar sands and shale, which has to be like refined. One thing, the United States has a large refining capacity. So what happens is like Canada pipes raw fuel to the U.S. and we refine it into retail grade gasoline and diesel, and we ship it back. So that's why like gas is so expensive in Canada. It's like they measure it in liters, but I did the conversion one time. I have family in Toronto, and I go up there sometimes, and like it always pains me to fill up there because it's so expensive. It's around $7 a gallon, depending on if you're using regular or like premium. But if you do the conversion from liters, yeah, so it's like expensive. But anyway, yeah. So pipeline is a huge part of it. We have that, and then another thing we do is we do what's called like data spotlights with this data. So data spotlights where I take the data and I do analysis with it. These like little report, like 2 or 3 page reports where if I see a trend in the data, for example, I write a little summary of it and we make it available on our website. Like last year, I noticed there was a trend in North American freight trucking where like Mexican trucks were outpacing Canadian trucks. Like a trend that started in late 2016. And we also use the data for well, let me finish with this first. So this is another one about like record freight with Canada and Mexico, where we picked up on where was the, yeah, I guess this was, yeah, 144 billion. And what is this? No. Uh, Let me see. What was this one about? Yeah, 144 billion in March 2025. And then like sometimes I focus on the commodities like vehicles and parts, and like if I see a discrepancy between like Canada and Mexico, I try to point it out. Like I noticed in the vehicle and parts commodity group, there was a huge gap between Mexico and Canada emerging, but it wasn't like as evident in railway locomotive parts or aircraft and spacecraft parts or water borne parts. And then yeah, now I'm actually working on something that is kind of stood out to me where using the TransBorder data, I noticed that like there's a growing rift in the value of electrical machinery and computer parts used in vehicles uh, transported to the U.S. by truck from Mexico, and that Mexico line is kind of going straight up. You see, it's almost vertical, whereas the Canadian line is just going sideways. And this one is for value. This one you kind of see the same thing in weight or short tons. And then I just break it down, to show that truck is like the most dominant mode. And then like I added up like the computer related machinery, electrical machinery and parts and vehicles. And then I said, like, 53% of the top commodities are just auto related. And, Mexico is really like, so basically what I said is there could be numerous plausible explanations for this new trend, a deeper look at the commodities involved points to a rising dollar value of electronics and computer parts used in personal vehicles. And then, Mexico also has ample skilled labor and cheaper labor as well. And then they kind of also arbitrage the currency differential because, like, I don't know, like $1 is like 20 pesos, where it's like, $1.35 in Canada. And so, labor is cheaper in Mexico, and they have a larger pool of skilled available labor. But they both, Canada and Mexico both have manufacturing facilities that are close along the land border with you, and they're highly integrated supply chains, or where they can quickly ship automobile parts by truck on the highway or by freight to the U.S. to take advantage of the cheaper labor and currency differentials to manufacture them cheaper there. And I don't have any evidence for this, but I think what's going on is when you see that line going straight up, Mexico has this thing called IMEX. Maybe Carson can talk more about this, but basically it's like a trade agreement where Mexico is allowed to produce just manufacture things for the factories called maquiladoras, duty free and tax free. And I think what's happening is foreign automakers like Japanese, Chinese, or European car makers are shipping their parts, like raw materials or like smaller components, to Mexico by vessel, where they are assembled, like final point of assembly is done in Mexico and sent to the US to trick Donald Trump and maybe the White House into believing that they're not coming from high tariff countries to kind of get around the tariffs, maybe, I don't know, could be. But that's one thing. But cars are also getting more expensive, and they're using these like large, high definition displays, like in Tesla. Well, not just like in Teslas now, but like I don't know if you've seen new cars at dealerships now, but they have these like you know like tablet size and maybe even like regular laptop 14-inch size like displays, high def, touch screen, audio response, connected to GPS and cellular 5G connectivity with real-time navigation and traffic data. You can just talk to it, say, hey, Google, or hey, whatever, Mazda, please navigate to Fairfax High School. And it'll say, sure, Sean, let's go. And it'll like automatically start playing the music that you want. It has a touch screen, so you don't even need a key. It recognizes your touch, like your fingerprint sensor on your phone, or has your retina scans. So all this stuff is going in the cars. It's becoming more expensive. And on top of all this, you have inflation and the debasement of the currency is making things more expensive. I don't know if you've seen a chart of the M2 money supply, but it's going straight up. It's like exponential curve going. So all this is like combined, and it's a combination of factors that are making these charts go like this. But whereas you'd expect them to, historically they tracked closer, but now it's just going straight up. And just between us, Canada has more regulations and higher taxes as well, whereas Mexico is a little bit more lenient and relaxed when it comes to this sort of stuff. So it's just like a holistic picture. A lot of this stuff I can't really say in the reports, because we don't have data. I'm just supposed to talk about the TransBorder statistics, but I try to stick this stuff in. Normally when it goes to editing, they take it out anyways, but that's my view of the whole thing. But anyway, sorry I went on off a tangent. You were asking me about the census stuff, but it's all kind of closely related in my mind. If I don't talk about it, I forget. And then later I'm like, shoot, why didn't I remember to say that? So my bad. But anyway.
No worries, Sean. I think you have a couple questions in the room.
Yeah. I had a question. So besides these kinds of trends reports that you're mentioning, does this data get kind of brought into other DoD sorts of projects and initiatives?
Yeah, definitely. It does. Like the pocket guide I mentioned earlier has several tables in there where it references TransBorder data. For example, we'll use TransBorder data for a chart or table or data visualization in the pocket guide, which will have the top 5 gateways along the U.S. Canada and the U.S. Mexico border. Top 5 gateways or ports. Top 5 border crossings by we'll use one version that'll do it by value, another by weight, and then we'll have a bar chart or a pie chart where we do the top modes, and then we also use it in the Transportation Statistics Annual Report, which is congressionally mandated, the port report, port performance report. So yeah. And then once in a while, we'll collaborate with, say, SANDAG, San Diego. What does it stand for? San Diego. Anyways,
Association of Governments. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Where we'll do data sharing there, or they'll ask us for data. We'll give them some of our data analysis reports. So, or it's just randomly sometimes, Carson can tell, we'll get requests from Congress, senators or congressmen about top ports or trade or at this border crossing or there. And then it's also used for apportionment funding, where Congress will use this data to decide which ports or border crossings should get the most more money for, let's say, um, renovations or construction or expansions at this port facility, for example. They're always expanding, either adding a lane or a new bridge, or, you know, and a lot of this data is used as like justification or support for, you know, but
Sean,
it's important
Sean, if
because,
I,
yeah, sorry, go ahead, Carson. Yeah.
oh, sorry, I just, on that point, um, if I may, so
Please, yeah.
the folks who don't know me there, I worked at Volpe for a long time, and last May switched over to the Office of International Transportation and Trade, which is a sister agency to BTS, where Sean is, working on, we work with the modes to basically promote and facilitate U.S. perspectives globally when it comes to trade and different trade policies. And so it's really an interesting time now with the tariffs. But to Sean's point about justification, I just wanted to touch on three or maybe four internal use cases that we are often called on. Sean's alluded to a few of them. I'm just going to give a little more color to them. The first, I think the most basic use for us internally is an informative one, where we're using this data to explain certain things to DOT leadership. For example, maybe there's a planned strike by rail workers in Canada. And so suddenly everyone's asking questions. Well, what does that mean? Where are the rail crossings? How many trains are coming across? What are they carrying? How long? If this strike goes on for 2 weeks, what does that mean? It's same kind of scenario for different embargoes on the rail side. Maybe there's some sort of disruption or protest. This happened during COVID on the Canada side. It happened recently on the Mexican side, where we had the immigration humanitarian crisis. And so we'll use the data that Sean is scrubbing and cleaning and BTS is working on to sort of evaluate the magnitude of travel and trade impact when one of these disruptions comes up. So that's the most basic, I would say. The second one is, that Sean just mentioned, is really interesting. And if I can share my screen for a second, I will. I'm just going to pull it up. So Sean mentioned project justification. And let me show you how that kind of plays out for us, at least. So there, as you know from your exercise, there are lots of border crossings, depending on how you count. There's like 167 official, but physical infrastructure, it's a lot more than that. And I'll show you an example. If we zoom in to Laredo, where Sean mentioned, the yellow dots are places where, and now my computer is frozen. Zoom has frozen. The yellow dots are where there's existing bridges. There's a one here in the north of Laredo. There's 3 downtown. The blue dots are where there are proposed bridges. And so it's really interesting because when a proponent of a project, say a new bridge south of Laredo right here, wants to do that, they have to go through what's called the presidential permit process, where they're basically working through the State Department to say, here's what we want to do, here's the rationale, here's why it makes a lot of sense for us to build a new bridge south of Laredo. We're going to target only commercial traffic, or we're going to target commercial and non-commercial, and they make the case. And they base that case a lot of times on the TransBorder freight and entries data. In parallel, the state DOT, and I'm going to refresh my browser right now because my Zoom has still frozen. In parallel, the state DOT, they'll have put together a border master plan where they're basically saying, here's everything that we're looking out the next 20 or 30 years that we think is going to happen, and where we want to develop industry, and this is where we're going to need housing, and this is what the traffic's going to look like in Laredo. And based on the TransBorder freight data, we have a really strong case for why this is such an important region. So the project proponent will be pointing to that, what the state's done, Meanwhile, on the back end, when we get the presidential permit application to review and say, hey, does a new bridge south of Laredo and north of Laredo make sense in the context of all these other rail bridge, commercial bridge, pedestrian bridge? Does that make sense? We will use that data to sort of, does this pass the sniff test? Does this make sense? Are they twisting the story? Similar situation is happening. I mean, that's happening right now in Laredo. Similar situation is happening just north in Eagle Pass, where you can see the yellow dots. There are two existing commercial and non-commercial bridges. There's a rail bridge, and there's a proposal by a tribe to have a new international bridge south, and there's a proposal by a private investor to have a rail and a commercial bridge north of the city. And you can imagine, at the municipal level and the state level, suddenly what's crossing, how much crossing, how long has it been crossing over this place, becomes important to a lot of stakeholders. And so we'll use that to again, pass does this sink or float? Finally, asterisks. A third use case, and Sean was involved in this, but we sometimes do more advanced analyses. I think maybe like your data your community of practice was working on, where last year DOT was working with Transport Canada to look at, we called it a tabletop exercise, but it was essentially looking at what would happen if suddenly one of these bridges was closed to a disruption due to, in this case, a weather event. And with Transport Canada, we use the data to see what's moving, where's it moving, how much is moving, how long has it been moving, and importantly, is there an alternative route? And if so, what's the capacity there? And so it became this least cost route modeling exercise where we say, okay, this bridge in Buffalo and Niagara Falls is closed. Where is this freight going to go? How long is it going to take? How much time is it going to add to travel? And sort of help use that as a foundation for a tabletop exercise on resilience, where we had FEMA and all the interagency there to sort of brainstorm what that would look like. I have one other potential use case, but
Before we
I'll let you go.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to show the folks what you're referencing. That study used TransBorder and border crossing data to rank the ports in terms of criticality in the event of a natural or man-made disruption, which, as you said, it rose out of the whole Canadian trucker border shutdown. We got together and said, okay, well, if the top bridge between the U.S. and Canada is closed because of protesters demonstrating on the bridge, which, it's like Ambassador Bridge right now. How far would truckers have to divert or reroute? Say, where would the nearest port close by be? So we would say Detroit, 65 miles away. And then we ranked it by the two-way truck crossing numbers, the counts of the actual number of trucks crossing that bridge or border, and the dollar value, for example. And I just wanted to show a table of what we did in that exercise. We haven't done one with Mexico yet, but it would be kind of similar if we did.
Was there any analysis of mode shift with that also, moving over to rail, or was it mostly just
Yeah, we talked about that a little. And what the conclusion that we came to there is that, yes, you can change modes for some commodities. Let's say you need critical healthcare pharmaceutical products, and the bridge is closed. It normally comes in by truck. Well, maybe we can rail it. Worst case scenario, we could fly it in, but it would be more expensive. But you could also. But there's some things like potash that only go by rail. You can't necessarily send by truck. But although I made the case that if it's containerized, you're talking about like a standard TEU container that fits on a truck. You can also fit the same container on a train or a vessel. And in the case of US and Canada, we have the Great Lakes to our advantage, where we can ship things across the Great Lakes on containers. So yes and no. Depends on the commodity.
Thanks, Sean, for all that. I just wanted to add one other right now use case that's happening that touches on, I think, some work that maybe some of you in the room are doing, but certainly Volpe colleagues. So FHWA currently has a research project. It's sort of changed in scope over the last few months, but it's looking at the impact of border wait times on air quality and congestion. And the part that I think Volpe is doing in a parallel project, the Rhody project, is, has an AI component. But so we've relied on, or the research team is relying on the border data that Sean's described, paired with wait time data that CBP also keeps. So if you go and Google like CBP wait time data, they'll have real time and historical data on how long trucks and cars and pedestrians are waiting at the border. And so the idea is that if we can look at the volume of traffic segregated by the type of vehicle, combined with how long they're waiting, then you can get some sort of profile of emissions for the border area. That's still happening. With the new administration, the gist may, the title of the report may be different, but that is essentially, thanks, Sean, that is essentially the project. And so it's a more applied and interesting use case of the border data and how, we've been using it. The Volpe team, and I've seen them present on it a couple of times, really interesting, where they're using video feed to see if they can identify respective individual vehicles, re-identify the same vehicle, some distance, I think 25 meters down the road, and basically interpolate what the speed is for that vehicle. And so there's a lot of synergies here where, we're using, video, AI, computer vision, the border data that Sean has, and then some creative thinking to sort of see if there's a way that we can put all these things together and make them useful.
Well, there's also environmental and safety implications as well when it comes to border wait time. If you add more infrastructure along the border, it frees up freight congestion. And so technically that should be better for the environment. There's less cars waiting in queue and also less accidents. So less people waiting, less frustration, aggravation, sitting in traffic, less idling. And so particulate emissions coming out of vehicles, is a concern for air quality for the people that live in those nearby neighborhoods. So it all kind of goes together.
I was going to ask about if there's any relationship to the Flow program. I was helping with that program a little bit, and I think they are trying to use CBP data as well. And BTS has got its own group, I think, that's been supporting that Flow supply chain visibility program. Maybe they're getting access to the data through some other means, but I think they were looking at Waybill or CBP data. Do you have any connection with the Flow program? It seems like it's related, right? It's obviously looking at containerized imports right now. And I guess they're just focused on port, so they're not doing land border crossings as far as I know right now.
I think Carson, I'll let you talk about. You know more about the, or is that? I think that's an FHWA.
It's OSTF.
Oh yes.
OSTF. Yeah. I don't know the answer to your specific question, but I'm certain that they're using and referring to the transborder freight data and the entries data. I mean, it is the go-to. Sean mentioned that everyone's using it. We gave you a glimpse of some of the use cases, but there's so many more. I mean, that's what we were interested. I think when you all did your exercise, like our colleague Ramon, who's not here, was like, what's Volpe doing? They have some good ideas that we should be like building out. So if you do have good ideas, I'm not to speak for you, Sean, but I'm sure BTS will be open to hearing them.
Thank you, Carson, and thank you, Sean. I think we're gonna start wrapping it up here. We've got just about another minute left. We want to end about 5 minutes early, if that's okay, just to get people over to their next meetings and stuff. Any kind of final comments, thoughts, questions? All right, well, thank you guys once again. Really interesting to see the data and the dashboard. I've jotted down a few notes about how I think I'll use it, so that's very helpful. Can people reach out with questions if they have any, if they're watching this video 10 minutes in the future, maybe?
Yeah.
All right, thank you all so much. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you as well. Have a good one.
Thank you.